Welcome. In front of me I have the ROG Phone 6 and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. Now before I actually get started, I'm just going to quickly mention I'm going to go over it in a bit of a different way. So this is already a dated device that was released nearly I think a year ago. And there is already a newer version of it, the ROG Phone 7. So I'm gonna go over this as if this device is worth picking up instead of the other one as a cheaper alternative, and also what it offers, obviously. So anyway, without further ado, let's just pop it open. I'm trying to figure out what kind of elaborate way do I open this up now. Oh, there we go. So that's interesting. So here we have our device, and I think there's a little bit more in there. I'm gonna look into that in a second. Now here we also have our charger, ROG branded, and this is a Type-C and can deliver, where's the wattage? 65 watts, based on the little writing somewhere around here. Further down the box we have our charging cable. It's braided, so that's actually pretty nice. And yep, I think that's basically all we have in here. Let's see what we got in here. So we have just a card. Not really sure what that's for. And then we get our cooling system. Just quickly looking at that. There we go. So here's our cooling system. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is not just a cooling. It does give you two additional physical buttons on here. So you can see that they actually press. They have a nice tactile feel to them, so that's pretty nice. I'm gonna put that on in a second. I'm gonna first get into the actual device itself. So there's nothing more in the box, at least not that I think of, so I'm just gonna slap it closed, move it out of the way. And let's get into our device. So there we go. And under here it looks like we just have paperwork. That's just paperwork. Oh, actually there might be a case in here. So let's try to get in here without needing to actually rip anything, but it looks like that is not going to be possible. The sound is pretty nice, but I'm gonna mute it. So yeah, there we go. We actually have a case in here, so I did expect correctly. And this is the typical ASUS case, as you can see. It's a plastic shell basically. And putting that on, it does complement the device pretty well, as you can obviously see. It looks nice. It does have a little bit of a bump right here for some reason. Not exactly sure why. Maybe some kind of speaker or cooling. But I haven't really looked into that just yet. Oops. There we go. And yeah, it looks pretty nice. We also have the display right here, but let's go over the setup right here. And while I'm going through the setup, I'm going to quickly mention the screen specs. So we are looking at 6.78 inch display. It's an AMOLED display with 1 billion colors. And where is it? 1 billion colors, 165 Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus certified, typical brightness of 800 nits and peaks at 1200 nits, so it can get pretty bright. It has an 82.2% screen to body ratio and 395 pixels per inch. That's basically all the specs of the display. And just to summarize this, if you have no idea what I just said, if you're not reversed too well in like tech specs, the display is pretty good. That's basically the gist of it. So we have in terms of AMOLED, this will give us really nice black levels, meaning that any content that is like fully black, the pixels on the display just kind of turn off and you have perfect black levels. Now, we also have one of the highest refresh rates on a phone at 167 Hz. That is insane. It actually might be a little bit of an overkill, to be completely honest. And we have a nice HDR10 Plus. We are running AMOLED, so to be expected, with actually a peak brightness of 1200 nits for an AMOLED display. That's pretty good. And yeah, basically in general, the display right here is good. Now it is loading something, and I think I know what it is loading. Yeah, I'm just gonna skip this. And there we go. So as you can see, once it's set up, we have our home screen. It is on a little bit more of a bloated side. We have garbage apps like Instagram, Facebook, some ASUS data transfer, though these ones actually might be useful. But there is a little bit more apps than you might be used to. So I don't know if we can remove them. Let's check out. Do you want to uninstall Facebook? Indeed I do. And actually I can uninstall it. So that's pretty nice. So even though it comes with just some bloatware, we can just get rid of it. And there is one more. Let's see. And I think I have gotten rid of any Facebook application. Let's go. Okay. Now, moving on. At the back, we have a triple camera setup, though let's be honest, this phone is designed for gaming, so the cameras right here won't be your main focus. And furthermore, the actual like sensors that we have right here, for the most part, for the most part, they're actually not that bad. So on paper, because that's basically all I'm going to give you on paper, is a 50 megapixel wide sensor f1.9. That's the main sensor, the one with the blue ring around it. Then we got a 13 megapixel ultra wide, which is the middle one. And then we have a 5 megapixel macro. Now typically, I was actually expecting that this would be a 2 megapixel, which would make it just absolutely a joke. But ASUS decided to actually crank up the resolution of this to 5, which at that point, this is actually a usable camera. So that actually is quite surprising, especially for a device that is catering more towards gamers rather than like photography. Having a 5 megapixel macro will actually give you decent results, surprisingly. And I'm pointing that out kind of like hard like this, just because there are phones that possibly cost more that come with a 2 megapixel macro as a sticker camera, just so you can think you have better cameras because you have more of them. Here ASUS decided to actually just give you a better camera, which props. Anyway, now moving on, in terms of the internals of this device, we are looking at, well, a last gen fully spec'd out device. So The possibilities of getting this device are a couple of them in terms of RAM and storage, and the one that I have right here is the, once I actually find it, so this is literally the highest spec one, I think, in terms of, let me quickly check if the storage can go any higher than this. Nope, it cannot. So yeah, this model right here is the top model of the offer. Now, to go into the internals, this one specifically right here has 16 gigs of RAM, which is an absolute insane overkill, and half a terabyte of storage, which again is quite high, running on a UFS 3.1 storage type. So, in all terms of purposes, this phone is just kind of bonkers. It has stupid amount of power. Now, just to actually compare this in terms of price and performance, I'm gonna bring out something that costs, I believe, a double this phone. This is the Fold 4. Now, to be fair, Fold 4 has a different appeal in terms of, in case that it folds, obviously. But in terms of specs, this phone has, on paper, better specs. We have bigger storage, faster charging, better display. I guess that probably not actually, but at least faster refresh rate and more RAM. So yeah, it basically knocks it out of the park on almost everything. Oh, and big disclaimer: we actually get a charger, 65 watts. This phone isn't even capable of charging at 65 watts. Even when you buy their special charger, it's only doing 25 for a device that costs like what, $1,800 freaking dollars. Money well spent. Anyway, that being said, this phone is packing some serious power, also being powered by a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is also the same one as the Fold 4. That's why I kind of compared these two, because they both pack as much power as they possibly can, though this one does a little bit more in certain genres, like in certain cases, like it has more RAM, it has faster charging, so those all add up to a more enjoyable experience, I would argue. But moving down the line, we also have a huge battery right here. It's a 6000 milliamps, so that is a massive power cell, which also helps that we can charge it pretty quickly with 65 watts. Now moving on, in terms of peripherals right here, we do have a headphone jack, as it is kind of standard on the ROG phones. We have two Type-C ports, one is at the bottom and one is on the side right here. Now, interestingly enough, previously ASUS had some kind of like plugs that you'd plug in here, and they were using some proprietary kind of plug, so you'd plug in your peripherals. They decided, at least by the looks of it, to ditch that for a more convenient Type-C, meaning that even when you're gaming, you can just plug in Type-C on the bottom, and it won't be getting any way, so you can just kind of, palm the entire device, not kind of do like some weird thing, so the cable can just stick out here as you would probably normally have to do. Continuing, at the top we got just a microphone hole, and on our other sides we have these touch sensitive surfaces, so this one right here with this kind of like weird engravings, and on the bottom side as well. Those are the triggers that you'll be assigning for different games, specifically probably shooters. Then we got our power button, volume rockers, and that looks like about it. And that leads me to believe we have an under display fingerprint sensor, which I'm trying to see on the paper if that is correct. Yep, that is correct. And at the bottom we have our little display, which I most likely won't be going into like trying to set it up, just because that would probably take a little bit too much time. And whatever that is, that actually looks like some kind of cover for something, but it doesn't seem to want to like come off or anything. So yeah, I have no idea what that is. Maybe that's just for aesthetics, to be honest. Now, anyway, let's get our little thingy thing right here. I want to keep in mind we have this surface right here. This is designed so it kind of sticks to the phone, and it will use the phone power to power the fan in here. And this works exactly like a thermal pad would on your computer processor. So it sticks to the glass back of your phone and just drives away the heat from it, and then gets cooled by the fan right here, which is powered by the battery in your phone. And just to kind of plop that in here. But you can actually use this with a case based on how much space we have, so I'm gonna put it on just to see this in action. There we go. We're gonna push it in. One thing to actually note, we do have a power button literally right here, but it looks like it will go under this little pressure right here, so it will still be accessible. So ASUS didn't like overlook that in any kind of way. But one thing... there we go. I was trying to force it, but we do have a button right here that releases it. So then we just press it down and it locks in place. Oh. I did have some like vibration right here. Oh, I can feel the fan. It does push some air actually. So you can see it spin right now. And you probably might be able to hear it if I put it right next to the mic, so let's see. I'm not sure if that was audible, but it looks like the mic was picking it up. So yeah, we do have some update. I guess I just have to update it. But that being said, one thing that I just kind of feel weird. I don't know how to hold it. It just feels... The buttons are just... These ones specifically are just out of place for me, at least for me. So probably the way I would be holding it is with my 2 fingers on these triggers and then my middle fingers, I'm not trying to flip you off or anything, would be on these smaller ones, because these are easy to press. These on the other hand side, you just kind of move your finger in a not very comfortable way. So yeah, when holding it like this, that's fine. At least it feels fine to me. Obviously your experience may vary a bit. For my hand's size, I guess, and it's kind of like how I hold the device, this would be more comfortable for me. So yeah, these buttons right here just seem a little bit weird. Maybe if I would be holding it like this, but then again, the top buttons become inaccessible, kind of. Yeah, it's a very weird placement. Nonetheless, the fan obviously works. It cools the device, which in games, if you have any, you can actually turn on the side panel that they have, which will appear obviously once you launch the game. You can just kind of like yank it from a side, and it will give you all the specs, like how much you're using of your processor, like GPU, CPU, what the temperature of the phone is, and also battery status, how much the battery will last. So you get basically all the information that you might need, and you can also in there overclock or underclock your device to run faster or a little bit slower. Slower meaning you will get a little bit better battery life, and faster, obviously better performance at the cost of your battery life. Now taking this off, all you need to do is just press the button. Automatically turns off a fan, and from there we just pull it down and take it off. Now, obviously when using this, you do want to peel that off. The appeal of this is to actually have a like good contact with your phone back. So this is like a sticky back, so once you put it on, it sticks a little bit better to your device and will give you better result than actually having this plastic cover on it. Keep in mind that it probably will attract just crap to it. It's not actually sticky, it's more rubberized. But yeah, it still might attract dust because it is rubberized, so you might need to give it a wipe once every so often. So, now finishing this off and quickly going into the kind of pros, cons, and all that. So we have a really good device with great speakers, great display, great charger and cable, battery, processor, RAM, storage, and all that. I could just continue because basically everything here is just kind of like top notch. The only thing that will fall down or fall off as the cameras compared to other flagships, and this comes at about a flagship price when it was new. Nowadays it's a little bit cheaper. So I can't really say for this device specifically because this one is the top shelf one, highest spec. But if you plan to get a more reasonable one, for instance with 12 gigs of RAM instead of the 16 and 128 gigs of storage, you can get one for like $700. So for that price, I think it's a good device. But that being said, the ASUS ROG Phone 7, which is the newer version, doesn't cost that much more, and yet it will offer basically as much. So I probably, if you haven't bought this device, I would maybe consider spending just I don't know how much it will cost, maybe $100 more, maybe a little bit less, depending on what you are willing to swallow in terms of higher price tag, because the newer version does come with a improved processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. This one is the overclocked Gen 1. So obviously Gen 2 will be faster, and apart from that, it's basically almost the same device in almost every way. Just kind of checking right here, comparing it. We have the same displays basically by the looks of it. Same amount of RAM, storage, battery. So yeah, apart from the processor, you get virtually the same device. Now, one thing that you don't get is this display at the back. So if you kind of like it for some reason, which is understandable, it's kind of a gimmick of this device, which people probably bought it for, then it looks like the ROG Phone 7 does not have this kind of display at the first glance. I believe there was, if I remember correctly, a little bit more expensive versions of the ROG Phone 7, like 7 Pro, I believe, which obviously at that point it's a more expensive device, so it won't be necessarily like apples to apples comparison, but the normal ROG Phone 7 is almost the same as the 6, which is this one. So, like I said, if you're willing to pay just a little bit more, probably the phone ROG 7 will be better. If you're just willing to spend whatever this is, if you're getting at a good discount, something like $600, 7 maybe, then obviously it's a great device. It still will function fantastically without much problems, and everything that it's included in the box will still function no problem, and it's still all relatively top shelf, just specs and all around in the device. So yeah, no problem here. The only downside is you just will have a little bit of an last gen processor. But if you don't get to pay a full premium price for it, like you do for the ROG Phone 7, then that obviously won't be a problem. Now, with that being said, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.